Today we're going to get on with some chicken stock. So I've got a chicken that I roasted yesterday. It's been in the fridge overnight. I've taken off all of the leftover meat to make a pie for dinner. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my big pan. I'm going to get all of that in. So I want all of that skin loveliness. All of those joints out. What I crinkly crackly, sorry. What I often do, I won't generally bother stocking one, to be fair. What I generally do is I keep a bag in the freezer, and when I've got a couple, I just whack those in. Straight from frozen, straight in the pan. Obviously I've added some vegetable ends there as well. I keep a bag, I've got two today, so I keep a little Ziploc bag in the freezer and I add to it as the week goes on when I've got some nice, clean, good scraps. So no mouldy bits of onion skin. I just shove it all in the bag. And then I can empty it out into the pan with the chicken. Get a nice good stock. Here we've got some drumsticks as well that I put in from another meal. So what have I got in here? I've got leek, onion, I've got a lot of peppercorns. I use a lot of peppers. Basically anything. No potato. I don't tend to put in peelings. The way I see it, if they can't or shouldn't to be canned anyway, then I'm not going to put them in my stock. So there we go. So there's 2 chicken carcasses. As so. I'm going to then pour in a good amount of water. So I've got a good amount of water in there now. It's bubbling slightly because that's hot straight from the tap. What I also do is I add in a good splash of cider vinegar in there. Add in a little salt. Oregano stalks I've got knocking about. Bit of pepper. I'd normally chuck in a couple of peppercorns actually, but I did not prepare for this video, so I can't find them. So I'll put in a little bit of pepper like that. Now, I believe the reason we put the cider vinegar in is to help draw out some of the nutrients in the chicken. So that's very worthwhile. Now, as you can see, I've filled this quite full. The reason for this being is I'm not too worried about it boiling over. I'm going to keep it at a relatively slow simmer for most of the day, so it shouldn't get too ferocious. So I'm going to stick this on the heat and abandon it now. So it's a couple of hours later. This has been simmering nicely. You can see the colour of the water has changed. It's not as clear The chicken's all broken down quite nicely. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to put it on to boil for a little while. Generally people say you shouldn't boil stock. It's much clearer, certainly, if you simmer it. I'm not overly bothered about how it looks, to be honest. I'm more for practicality, and what I need to do is I need to cook this down a little bit and reduce it, and I need that not to take 10 years. So I'm going to stick this on a little bit higher now, and I'm going to boil it down. So I've got my canner. I'm using my little yellow one today. He's called Sunny. We love him. I've oiled my seal, checked my air pipe, put in a little splash of vinegar. I'm going to add my water and get it on the stove. So this has now cooked down for a couple of hours. It's about half what it was, so I'm going to laughably try and film myself straining this for you. So what I normally do is I get a large pan. There we go. If you want something a bit finer, you can use a bit of muslin or something. I generally don't bother because for me it's practicality over perfection. So here we go. I find this does do a perfect good job, actually, of straining. Although normally I've got it on the floor, which is a little bit easier. There we go. So what I do sometimes do is I sometimes do a second run with the veg then. But I'm not going to do that today. So excuse the wasp that suddenly appeared. So there we go. What we can do is we can put that in the fridge to help separate off the fat. I don't find that chickens tend to produce that much, and it's a bit of a faff getting out because it doesn't go solid enough anyway for me, so I probably won't bother. I'll just get them straight in the canner after dinner. So I've sieved off the worst of the fat. So if you want to see what that looks like, because who hasn't always got a wine glass handy? So that's a tiny bit sediment-y. It's not incredibly clear, but actually I prefer it that way anyway, and I find it generally more practical just to get on and do it rather than to worry too much about how it looks. Sediment in it's not a safety issue, it's just personal preference. So I don't tend to get overly precious about it. I will just can this as is. Let's see if we can give you a good shot there. There we go. What I do often do actually is I do run them through the two sieves again, just to make sure I've got everything out that's coming out. But I don't worry too much. So there's that. And we're going to get that straight in our jars then. Now I've got some hot jars. I've got hot stock, hot jars, I've got the canner heating up, and I'm just going to really disastrously try and pour some stock into that jar. Normally I'd use a jug, but it's in cupboard behind the camera. So you want to leave about 1 inch of headspace. Going for about there. As I say, what I do often do is I'll cook that down again. I'll put some more water in and I'll cook that down a second time, and then I'll mix the two together. But I'm just going to get these done today. I find a good measure of 1 inch is just at the bottom of the neck there, just before it starts to flare out. And that gives a pretty good measurement. So I'm just going to wipe them with a little bit of vinegar because it's fairly fatty. And I want to make sure that there's no residue left to foul the rims there. I'm using my smaller canner today because this is just a small load. The trick is when you're using the canner, to make sure that the pressure remains even, you need to put in at least 2 litres of contents in some configuration. Be it 2 litres, 4 pots, 4 pints. Or more smaller jars. There we go. So I'm going to get these into my heated canner now and start getting it up to vent. Wait until it starts releasing a cone of steam, and then we're going to get on and start our timer for the 10-minute vent. So my timer's just gone off for the end of my 10-minute vent, so I'm going to add my weight. Wait for that to come up to pressure now. You can see my pressure lock's just popped, and I'll see you when the pressure's built. You can see we're just starting to come up to pressure now. I'm going to turn the heat down just to the extent that the jiggler keeps rocking very slowly. And my timer's just gone off, and it's time to turn off the heat and wait for the canner to depressurize. Okay, so my little pressure lock has dropped there. I'm going to take the weight off and give it another 10 minutes. So they've been waiting with the lid on for 10 minutes. I'm now going to remove the lid, turn and lift away from me. And I'm now going to give them 10 minutes with the lid off before we take them out. So we've just finished the last 10-minute wait. I'm going to get our stock out of the canner there. So I've got my tongs. There's one. There's two. Now that first one was pretty still, so that may not have sealed properly. But if I can hold that one still enough, you can see it bubbling. And that one's bubbling away a bit as well. Now I've had quite a few pops. There's another one. I've had quite a few pops while they've been in the canner. One of them seems to have been having difficulty, and it's popped repeatedly. So I'm going to keep a little eye on them and see what's going on with that. I'm not sure if you can see in the video. I'll see if I can get a bit of a close-up in a minute. These two are both bubbling quite nicely. This one is bubbling as well. Actually, it is quite ferociously bubbling. Don't touch the jars, do you know? And this one is bubbling as well, so it may not be a problem. It may just have been one of them was having a little problem sealing. But it's just an interesting thing to look out for. So we'll see. I'm not entirely sure which jar it was that was popping, but they all seem to be down now. So I think whichever one it was has sorted itself out now. But we will leave them for 24 hours and we will check them again in the morning and we will see. Night. Good morning. So we're going to check these now. So you can see, if you give all the lids a little tap, there's no give in any of them. So I think we're good. I think these are all sealed. So if I pick that up, there we go. There's no give at all. If we look at the bottom, there's a little bit of sediment, but not too much. I'll just be careful how I pour it out. Yeah, and again. Normally, obviously, there's not as much sediment as this, but because I was trying to pour it cleverly on the surface so that you guys could see, I wasn't quite as careful as I normally would be. So those are all pretty good. So even though it sounded like one of them slightly struggled to seal a little bit when it was in the canner, it's come good and there was actually nothing to worry about, which is always good to know. I'm going to give these a good wipe off then. There we go. 4 jars of lovely chicken stock. Perfect.